The Matrix Resurrections was a movie that I never thought would get made, and when it was announced that we would be getting the movie, it was one that I was particularly nervous for. A lot of times when sequels come back after years upon years off, they typically never fully, truly capture the magic of what came before it. And then after we got that amazing Matrix trailer, this became quickly my most anticipated and hyped movie for the year. And I saw it last night, so let's get into my review. All right, so let's get into what worked and what did not work for The Matrix for me, and there will be spoilers ahead, so if you do not want to be spoiled, please click off this and come back when you've watched the movie. So whenever you're returning to a franchise after a substantial amount of time off, you definitely need a concrete idea that would resonate with fans, and it's logical, makes sense why you're returning to that universe, and why we're getting this fourth Matrix movie. I enjoyed how they're coming back. It was definitely a unique take that I personally wasn't expecting, and I enjoyed it for the most part. Like having the they gradually throughout it, they touch on why, Neo's basically plugged in again. And essentially, they did have a time of peace after the events of the original trilogy. But then the machines fought with each other to the point where, I guess you could call them evil machines, broke off, created a brand new Matrix. And, obviously we have the storyline with how Neo and Trinity played into powering the new Matrix for them. This movie starts off with Neo running, living in the Matrix in his kind of new life. And he portrays for the first quarter of the movie of a man kind of going crazy. Like, what is going on here? He can't distinguish what's real, what's not real. He's having flashbacks and memories coming back to him. At first I was a little distracted by like the flashbacks of the old clips, but then the more they used it, I bought into it. And just subtle things too. Like you'd see a reflection of the person and it wouldn't be the reflection. There's a couple times that it quickly did that where I had to catch myself. I'm like, was that just someone different? And of course, when we get later to the reveal where they tell Neo, the way he looks to other people is different than the way he sees himself. So that confirms, we were seeing quick little snippets earlier on of different reflections. I enjoyed that whole setup. It's kind of spacey, dreamy, and a part that Keanu Reeves can play well. So definitely enjoyed the initial setup. A lot has been made about Lawrence Fishburne and Hugo Weaving not coming back to reprise their roles of Morpheus and Agent Smith, respectively. And when you get most of the gang back together, like, why not get all the gang back together? But for the most part, the new characters, I didn't have any issue with them, especially since they were both programs. Like, they were never real people. I was fine with them having potentially, a different skin, so to speak. So it didn't really bother me. Well, yes, it would have been great to see Lawrence Fishburne back on the screen, but for the most part, those new characters actually did work for me in this particular story. Now, the first half of this movie is very self-aware, and I was good with it up until when they drop Warner Brothers, is funding the movie or whatever. They're going to cut the budget, and they're like, we need to make the Matrix 4. And then they dive into, like, how can we make this a good movie? Like, what did the other Matrix movies have that, we got to give them this? So, like, when they got into, like, basically breaking down how they're making the current movie they're in, it took me a little bit out of it. I think it was fine being self-aware. I love the nods to, like, the process they were doing. But once they started dropping, Warner Brothers, Matrix 4, that kind of stuff, and then I got taken out of the movie a little bit. There's a fight scene in the first half where Agent Smith brings in some old programs, and we get to see the Frenchman again. And the fight scene is extremely shaky camera. I had a very hard time following it. For me, that scene was a little underwhelming. The movie in general, the major thing that was kind of missing for me was any sort of tension. They introduce us to the human city of Ion, and Niobe's there, and like, you can't be here, Neo. We're safe. No one knows where we are. Blah blah. Like, she's saying all this stuff. Like, by you being back, like, we're all gonna be, we're all in danger. But never once in the actions do you ever feel that Ion is ever in trouble, that the human race is ever in trouble. And even Neo and Trinity, just there's such a lack of tension for me personally. I never ever saw our main leads, like I never ever thought their lives were at risk. Even the crew they go with, no one actually, not that people have to die to create tension, but like no one, like you get like, the couple bloody noses when they're jacked in, and that's it. There was no like, not that you want to copy everything from the first one, but there was no sentinels listening or no sentinels potentially bearing down on them or bearing down on the city. Like there's no element of, that you had to come to a particular conclusion very fast, right? Like everything was just dealing with the analysts within the Matrix, and it was just Neo, plug yourself back in or we kill Trinity. Like that to me was probably the weakest part of the film. Really, like I want to be in a movie like this, I kind of want to be on the edge of my seat during it, and I was definitely reclined as far back as I could. And in the end, I feel like this movie was more of a love story and a final, like, let's give Neo and Trinity the happy ending they kind of never really got originally. And that's really what it was. It was more or less a vehicle for them to be like, yes, we're both alive. We've now, we've both been awoken. We've found each other. And now we kind of get to live the life that we never thought we'd ever get to live. So in that sense, and if that's what you're looking for, you're probably going to enjoy this trip to the Matrix. But for a Matrix sequel, the scale just felt a little off. And you know what? That's fine. I loved seeing Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss back on the big screen. I liked that they got to tell a story, for their characters. And I did have fun during the movie. Was it the best Matrix movie? No, definitely not. Was it enjoyable, and would I recommend paying money to see it? Yeah, it's fun. If you're a fan of the Matrix, it's something you got to see. So I got to give this movie a score, and I've thought about this over the night. And again, upon multiple viewings, maybe my opinion changes. But as my first reaction to my first viewing, I'm going to give this movie a 7.2 out of 10. It's a decent score, and I think you could have fun watching this in the movies. Let me know in the comments, where did this movie land for you? Did you love this trip back to the Matrix, or was it a big misstep? Peace out, everybody. We'll see you all in the next video.